That action will be taken on the following items at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, in the council chamber, Sparta Township Municipal Building, 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The meeting is called to order at 6:30 p.m. and the regular meeting will begin at 7 p.m. Would you bring us into exec, please, Deputy Mayor?
Yes. You want to make a motion, and then I'll...
You make a motion to bring us into, that is the motion.
I'll move that we move into executive, whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 PL 1975 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Sparta, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of an action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter is to be discussed is as follows: litigation advice, personnel, contract negotiations, and miscellaneous legal. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public when deemed appropriate. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, I'll turn it over to our acting manager. Okay. May I have a motion to bring us out of executive meeting into a regular meeting, which is at 7:04?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And may I have a roll call, please?
Councilman Giroux.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg.
Here.
Councilwoman Quinn.
Here.
Councilwoman Wildman. Here. Mayor Smith.
Here. And may we all stand for the salute to the flag, please? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any minutes to be approved this evening, so I'm going to go right to the manager's report. Mr. Spitaletto.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, everybody here this evening for joining us. I'm going to start off with an update from our Public Works Department. Has installed a leveling asphalt course in sections of Edison Road. This will help save our snow plows from damage in the winter months and provide for a much smoother driving condition. Last week, Public Works repaired a damaged lamppost on Town Center Drive at the Bank intersection. 2 yellow bollards were also installed to protect the post from future collisions. The adjacent guardrail was also repaired. Public Works continues to address residential work orders that include berm work, tree concerns, and basin repairs, just to name a few. This past Friday, our vendor, Denville Line Incorporated, refreshed several pavement marking areas, such as stop bars, direction arrows, crosswalks, and railroad crossing symbols at various locations throughout our township. Leaf bags are posted to be picked up starting the first week of November. However, crews are out there already, I saw them today, picking up bags when they can, when space allows in their trucks. An update from our Parks and Rec. First session of the fall program is almost complete. Most of the second session programs are already full. Preparations for the trunk or treat and movie night Hocus Pocus are finished. This event takes place this Friday, October 28th at Station Park. We have a wait list for trunks. Weather's supposed to be nice. I'm sure we're going to get a nice crowd that evening. We opened registrations for K through 3 basketball on October 1st and will continue through the end of the year. The department is getting ready to gather information for the winter programs. The next brochure goes out in December. Our new senior coordinator, recreation leader, started work yesterday. We are happy to welcome longtime Sparta resident Emily Fisher to our Sparta Township team, and we know she will do a fantastic job with our seniors. The senior programs are ongoing in the Senior Center. We are continuing with the once-a-month craft, senior lunches with speakers, and all the regular programs. Visit the Sparta Township website for updated monthly calendars, please. The department is also preparing for our holiday events. Follow the Sparta Recreation Facebook page or visit our township website for all of our upcoming events involving recreation. Best practices inventory. Within our resolutions this evening, I would like to point out the municipality scored well once again on the best practices inventory. This is relative to the various questions posed on our statutory compliance for the identified areas of interest and is at a level that allows for the township to get full state aid and allotment without any penalty reduction. I want to commend my CFO, to the left of me, Sam Rome, and his entire staff for their efforts in allowing us to achieve this very high score. An update from our water department. Hydrant flushing will begin system-wide on November 1st. The program should last approximately 4 weeks. No flushing will be performed the day before Thanksgiving or on Thanksgiving. All customers should check for discoloration of incoming water prior to doing a load of laundry. Customers should be reminded to protect, insulate, heat their water meter areas when these winter temperatures are now approaching us to avoid any unnecessary pipe freeze-ups and problems. A report on an ordinance. There are a few ordinances on tonight's agenda for hearings. Ordinance 22-13 regarding soil fill placement will provide needed protections to prevent delivery of contaminated soil within Sparta Township. Quite a bit of work was put into this ordinance to provide the protections necessary to protect our environment from contaminated soil being delivered here in Sparta. I want to thank Mr. Ryan, Mr. Tom Collins, Stan Push, our zoning department, and our environmental commission for their input and work on putting this together. An update for our emergency services, an OEM update. The 5th annual Coffee with a Cop was held October 12th. The coffee was donated once again by Cloveberry in town here. The police department provided police hats and crafts for our children. It was nice. It was a nice meeting for everybody that came out. I'd like to once again thank Dave Costa and his staff for providing the library for this nice event. A Sparta Volunteer Fire Department held their open house on October 16th with quite a few people in attendance. Our volunteer fire department does a fantastic job, and they're always looking for more memberships to join them. Safe Kids Worldwide and local law enforcement once again performed child car seat inspections and safety checks at 5 West Shore Trail yesterday. They will be continuing this program at this location the last Monday of every month. Sparta Police Department will be delivering to the DEA approximately 600 pounds in disposed medication for the National Take Back Day on October 29th. Sparta Township Police Department and many other agencies in Sussex County have disposal bins located right in their lobby to dispose of unwanted medications or expired medications. Please take advantage of this. And Sparta police officers will once again be participating in No Shave November, with all proceeds going to combat different cancers and entities that assist in cancer treatments. A couple congratulations announcements. Special congratulations to the Sparta Unified Soccer Team on winning the 2022 Unified Cup Championship this past weekend in Mercer County. The team was given a police escort back through our town. We were lucky to have them in the high school and middle school life skill classes here at Town Hall yesterday for a tour of all our offices at Town Hall and our police department. Also, a special congratulations going to our Sparta High School Marching Band on being named Regional 10 Champions, winning Best Music, Best Color Guard, Best Visual, and Best Percussion. A fantastic accomplishment once again by our band. Sparta Township has been nominated for a Sussex County Economic Development Award by the Sussex County Economic Development Partnership. Award winners will be announced at this particular event and luncheon to occur on Friday, November 4th. And just a reminder, our flu/COVID vaccine clinic will occur on October 29th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Knoll Heights, 39 Trapasso Drive. Please check the Sussex County website to register for more information. That concludes my report, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept the manager's report?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried. This time I'm going to open it to the public. Once again, I'm going to limit it to 1 hour. When you come up, go to the microphone and please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Marilyn Chapman. I live at 66 Hunters Lane. Mayor Smith, it has come to my attention that the Weeble family, which owns North American Packaging Company, has donated $5,000 to you under the family name, and North American Packing has donated another $2,500. I'm remembering the night when we sat here and the members of the town council assured us that no one served to benefit from this warehouse. Can you explain to me how this warehouse packaging company is giving you money?
Well, I'll jump in there because I know the Weibel family personally, and they just finished building a place in Pennsylvania. They have no business interest in Sparta. They're residents.
Then why are they giving money to Mr. Smith?
You might want to ask them that.
Well, I think it's better to ask Mr. Smith that.
Well, maybe they agree with where our stance. I mean,
Pardon me?
I can't speak to why people donate for what. I've known the Weibels also. They've known us. They know our background.
Could you speak up more loudly, please, Mr. Smith?
They've known us for quite a while. They know our history in town.
And they want to make big bucks off the backs of Sparta residents who do not
I don't
want
see how
this
you can say
warehouse.
that.
That's a little
completely a
slanderous.
guess. That's a guess.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Well,
Incidentally, it was interesting, in the New Jersey Herald on the 19th of October, there was a quarter-page ad which says, "We load trailers.com. We are looking for trucking industry players, freight brokers, freight agents, shippers, dispatchers, and owner-operators to join us on our new site, WeLoadTrailers.com." Isn't that somewhat of a coincidence that you've gotten money from?
where's the site? I have no idea. I'm not familiar with that ad. I don't get the Herald.
Where's the site? Where's the site? Does it say where the site is?
I didn't look at the site. The Weibel name didn't come up, but I suspect that it's back there, and they're in cahoots together.
They're not back there.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion.
You're not making it clear that your hands are free of
You're
money.
making assumptions, and I'm not going to. It doesn't matter a lot of times what I say up here, what's said up here. You have your own perception. You came out accusing, and you have no basis of it. No, I'm not going to. If they're for us, I think they're for the right team. What can I say?
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Joanne Scally, 144 Seneca Lake Road. I want to start off by saying that I am against the warehouse, but I'm saying that I'm also ashamed of the vitriol and accusations and false accusations and personal attacks on all of you up here. I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, I'm angry for what they have done to all of you 24/7, not just here, it's on Facebook, attacking mostly Councilwoman Quinn, Councilman Hertzberg, and Councilman, I forgot your name. Smith. Sorry about that.
That's the tough one.
But I'm very sorry. I thought our last council election was a dirty election. Little did I know, a few years later, I would be so disgusted by false accusations with no proof backing them up against all three of you, and not only with the council election, Board of Education. It is cruel, it's horrible. The last election was personal attacks on people's appearances. This time, it's just all-out attacks. I'm so saddened, but I'm so proud of what my town has been. Recently, my husband got stung by a bee in July 27th, and I called 911 because he passed out completely. That never happened before, and in minutes, Sparta police were there. The first officer on the scene was Officer Porter, and he immediately took care of my husband. My husband's 76. He was out completely, shaking, making weird noises, made my husband comfortable. Then Officer Pridham arrived, and he got my husband's wallet out of his short pocket to give to the medics when they got there. And I asked Officer Pridham if they could transport my husband to Morristown. He spoke with them. They couldn't be in such bad shape. I have nothing but good things to say for our Sparta police, our Sparta ambulance. They got there. They helped keep everything great. Then just a few weeks ago, my husband had a fall. He went through a glass cabinet, cracked his head up in the middle of the night when he got up. And Officer, I got to remember his name, one with the mustache. I can't remember him. He came and he helped stop the bleeding. He went out, helped my husband get in. So it was two great things that I never had to deal with anyone coming to my house. And there's so many great things that Sparta has done, from the police force to the ambulance to the trunk or treat. I have no kids that age, but I have grandchildren that age. Nothing but great things. Sparta has been a great town for years and years, not just overnight, like people were saying, like, oh, the warehouse. No, that might be an issue I disagree with too, but I also commend you for all the great things you've done in the past. And in fact, it was the minority of you on the board right now that did all those great things. We've been #1 in the nation for years. I want to thank you all for that. No one, I did not see one person here ever come to meetings before and thank you for all the good things you've done. I haven't been at the meetings, but I've seen them recorded. I've never once seen people thank you for all the good things you've done. And I want to thank you for all the good things you've done. Even though I disagree with the warehouse, but people are making accusations that are untrue. I believe from what I read that your hands are tied. And if that's so, I feel bad for you. But I hate what's happening, and I hope people can continue to support our great town. You did great things, and I appreciate it. There's just too many things I can name that you did, but I really hate the false accusations. I hate the vitriol that's going on in town. It's embarrassing for our town. It makes our town look terrible, and it's not. It's a great town. Our Board of Ed is great. We all can't agree. We had hot button issues in the past, like the garbage referendum. We didn't have this hate happening. Where did it come from? I don't know. And there was many people against the referendum. People voiced their opinions civilly, went on their way. The garbage referendum was approved. No one caused hate. Another hot button issue was when we had the police layoffs. Majority were against the police layoffs. But again, there was no hate. It was a mistake what they did. I think they learned that it was a mistake. But I'm just hoping that we can go back to normal. I just wish the hate would stop, the anger would stop, the false accusations. I remember one meeting night, one person was attacking you for 16 minutes. I don't know how you restrain yourself. There's no other council. I've been to many council meetings, no other council that would let someone attack, baiting you guys to try and make you come back. It was pure baiting, pure attacks, pure accusations, hearsay, and it's wrong. And I'm ashamed, as a longtime Sparta resident, I am truly ashamed of my town and all the people that falsely attacked you. They never came out and thanked you for the good things that you have done for our town. They only come against the warehouse. Whether the warehouse comes or not, I still want to thank you. I don't want the warehouse to come. I hope it doesn't come, but I believe you guys might have been misled on the warehouse too. But your hands are tied to speak about it. But thank you again very much for all you did. I thank the police. I thank the ambulance. We have a great library, thanks to all you guys. We have a great school system. We have great everything in town, recreation. I know great senior citizen programs, even though I've been eligible for many years. I still kind of want to think I'm not a senior citizen at heart, just like my mom, even though I'm way past that time. But thank you very much for all you've done for our town and all you continue to do. I just had to come out, even though I have a lot of family tragedies going on, I still had to come out to thank you for all you've done.
We truly appreciate that.
Thank
We
you.
really do.
Thank you.
That is appreciated.
It's well appreciated.
More than you know.
I'm Vivian Perlmutter, and I live on 5 Morgan Drive, and I hope the last speaker just enjoys the pollution and the trucks. I really do. And if these, the Weibel family and Northern American Packaging has given so much money, what do you think they might possibly be wanting in return?
A good counsel.
Do they live here
Yes,
in Sparta?
yes. They don't do business here, they live here.
And a good council brings in more than 500 tractor trailer trucks. that
Again,
have
where did you
pollution.
get that number?
From
Where?
From where?
our
Thin air.
darling guest who came into the planning board, Mr. Ford.
He never said 500.
Mr.
He
Ford
said
testified.
500 minimal.
Never.
Never.
Never
I heard
did
every
he
one
say
of them.
that.
He never said that.
And we
Well,
never
how
even made
many
it to the
pe-
traffic portion.
190 truck
Planning
docks
board.
filled
No.
and 50 extra parking spaces.
And one, we don't even know what they're coming back with.
But I think that this contribution may say, gee, whatever they come back with, come on in.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. If you have difficulty understanding me, I apologize. English is my second language. I am an immigrant, moved to the United States 27 years ago.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you state your name and
Name-
address?
name,
Sorry. See, it's my first meeting. Ahmed Khawaja, 94 Under Rock Road. This is the first time in 27 years I've attended one of these. Facebook brought me here. I moved to U.S. 27 years ago, as I said. I was born on a U.S. Air Force base in a different country. That means my father served the U.S. Air Force. Though I have brown skin, and I did not know of my brown skin till I moved to Sparta. Two friends, you would know their names, former Morris County Sheriff Ed Rochford and former Congressman Rodney Freeling-Heisen, whom my family and I have known for many years. They were the reason I moved to New Jersey, and they were the reason I moved to Sparta, New Jersey. My wife wears a hijab by choice, not by force. My older daughter wears a hijab by choice, not by force. She's 20 right now at NYU. She went to Sparta Middle School, Sparta High School. One of the experiences she had in Sparta High School was where she was in class and the teacher would divide the class for and against, give a motion to see their critical thinking. The topic that was given that day was, let's talk about global terrorism. One of the kids in high school makes a comment, her class fellow. Why do we need to create for and against? Let's give the whole hour to Kanita. She's a Muslim. Who will know more about terrorism than her? My response is Timothy McVeigh was not a Muslim. Hitler was not a Muslim. The crusades of the 12th century were not committed by the Muslims. Anyway, coming back to the point, my younger daughter, she at one point said, I do not wish to go to school anymore. Grade 3, at least a dozen times pushed in her school bus by girls who sat next to her with the comment, my daddy says you people are not good people. I'm a taxpayer. My taxes are in 6 figures. I'm not throwing it. I'm a business owner. Many mayors and many political offices know me very well. Then my little daughter, she was 6 years old because we want to assimilate. The word is assimilate. We have to accept each other. We have to agree to disagree. Went to a school game in Sparta High School where a senior of Sparta High School comes and throws a shoe at my wife, which hit my daughter. Finally, I got fed up. And there are more experiences we've had. This great town we came to, which is still an amazing town, and nobody can force me out of here. I put my frustration on Facebook. Within an hour, I get a message from a gentleman named, is it okay to name people from the council here? A gentleman named Joshua Herzberg messages me. I'm disappointed. I would like to come and meet your family. I gave the address. The next day, the gentleman was at my home with his wife to comfort my wife and my kids, gave my daughters his cell phone number and said, if someone bothers you again, before you call your dad, you call me. I'll comfort them. He introduced me to the police chief as well. He's sitting right there. The man has one of the best hearts I've known. Everybody, all of you have been mentioned to me by Josh and Neil, and they speak with the highest respect. Coming to this warehouse, we have to remember an economic factor. We're entering a recession. 2 weeks ago, Bank of America came with a report, quarter first onwards of 2023, 175,000 jobs will be lost every month. Jamie Dimon, whom, in my view, who is the king of economics, the chairman of, CEO of JP Morgan, he said America is about to enter the worst economic crisis. What will happen? Groceries are going to go sky high. What will happen? Gas prices, thanks to the current regime in DC, our gas prices are already sky high. What will happen? Prices will go up. If this warehouse is not a taxpayer entity, if it's a non-profit entity, I'm against it. If it is a for-profit entity, They're coming in the middle of the night. They're storage warehouses. Their trucks don't want to be stuck in traffic. Storage warehouse, 5 come a night, 10 come a night. There's a lot of, we're already in one of the best towns pollution-wise. So my response to that is, let's address the economic factor. Do we want more taxes from this warehouse, or do we want my house tax, property taxes to be raised? We have to figure that out, because the prices are rising, or we can reduce the police force into half. Where my daughter had to dial 911 once, she was home alone and scared. 6 cars were at my house within 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes. I've lived in New York and I dialed 911 because my daughter was very sick, had to be taken. It took 18 minutes for an ambulance to arrive, 35 minutes for the police. So I thank all of you here. I apologize for all that I read on Facebook. It's utter garbage and nonsense. Sincere apologies.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to add the police officer's name. It was Taylor May that came when my husband fell and cut his head open. He had 18 stitches when he was on transport to Newton Hospital. But again, I want to thank you. And again, I'm sorry for your family, what they went through. But the one council person that stepped up was the one that's mostly attacked, Councilman Hertzberg. Thank you very much. You do a lot of great things. People choose not to see that. They choose to see hateful things that mostly untrue. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Dean Reinauer, 15 Birch Parkway. I know at some point my road is going to be paved. I've only been here 39 years and it was paved once. But more importantly, there's a drain in front of my house, one of the things on the street. And when I say there's a hole, there's an enormous hole that my concern is that somebody is going to be walking a dog or something and they're going to go in and they're going to turn around and sue the town. So while it may not be the ideal time for asphalt, it might be really good for the road department to just throw some stones in or stick a cone in.
Did you say 4
Did you say-
Maple?
What's
15 Birch.
Birch? That's not our street,
Yes,
is
it
it?
is.
Yeah,
Yes, it
it's-
is.
It is ours?
It is.
That is
It
ours?
is. And I will reach out to the DPW, Dean,
Some stone.
and follow up
Yep.
on that. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Adrian Meerman, Harbrook Drive. I just want to respond to some of the critical comments by previous speakers about how the council has been abused and how the residents do not appreciate the work that you do. It was about 3 council meetings ago that I stood here and asked Mrs. Spitaletto what makes our town the 7th or in the best 10 safest towns in the country. And Mr. Smith added, we are the 7th safest town, best town in the country. And I asked, why was that? And you gave an answer about the police department and their roles, their various roles. Mr. Smith mentioned the EMS services. Someone from the audience mentioned the very good schools that we have. And the residents that evening applauded all the good work that you do. So when we have 2 comments recently apologizing for people expressing their opinions, feisty, sometimes incorrect, then they correct themselves, I sometimes correct myself, that is part of the game. But I don't want to leave it standing that somehow the residents do not appreciate good government. There was applause that in response to what you contributed, what you contribute through your services to the town. I just want to make clear that I don't want this black and white division either. I think there is plenty of subtlety, plenty of shade between being critical and being not aware of some of the, as people see, mistakes that were made, especially recently. That is my comment for this moment.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Neil Clark, 224 Springbrook Trail. And first off, let me say how sorry I am that your family had to experience that. I've met with it's a different Islamic family that lives in town, similar experience. And same thing happened to them. And they almost pulled their kids out of school for the exact same reason. And I'm glad that you stuck with it. I thank you, Josh, for going over there and standing up for him. Because if folks that look like us don't stand up for folks that look like him, then essentially we're consenting to that. And I think that it's incumbent on all of us, if we see it happening, we do something about it. And I applaud Josh for doing that. But I do want to talk about, I think, what was shared recently about, vitriol. I don't want to leave people with the impression that it's only going one direction, because it's not. I don't like to complain about, listen, I do a very hard litigation that a lot of money's at stake. It's very fought, long and hard, and I'm used to people saying things, misrepresenting things, and I can take it. But what I can't take is a false sense of sanctimony. That, hey, we're it's coming from this direction. It's not coming from up here. I wasn't the one who spread anything about police defunding, how something so absurd was said about me and said about people I'm running with. And that's offensive and disgusting. And that came from up there. That's where it came from. Thankfully, or maybe unthankfully, the same time that happened, I had to go down to the police department, I didn't want to. I was like, this is something to just, why should I whine about this? Of, someone taking the signs and defacing them. But I was told that's probably the best thing to do in case things escalate. But I'm glad I had that opportunity, because I had the opportunity to meet with the police officer, and I apologized. I said, I don't want to come in here like a whiner. And I told her, let's set the record straight right now. There's absolutely nothing, no truth to that. But that's what was leveled against me and the people I'm running. Not only on that platform, but actually on the airways. People paid to have that happen. So if we're going to talk about untruths, let's talk about it's not one direction. It's coming from another direction too. And listen, part of being in government is that you get criticized for the things that you do. Right? In other countries, if I stood up here and said what I said, they do what they just did in China and take the person out, and God knows what happened to them. That's the benefit of living in this country, that we get to disagree with you. But it needs to stop at the name-calling and just completely baseless accusations like the ones that have been leveled. And so I just want to be clear that it's not just coming from the citizens. It's not. But we are complex people. I don't appreciate what Josh said about me, but I do appreciate that he went to that gentleman's house and he said, I'm going to help you. All right? That's a good thing. And I thank you for that, and I hope more people stand up for him. But let's be like that all the time. Not some of the time when it may be politically expedient to level a charge against someone that's completely baseless. Let's be the best version of ourselves all the time. And I hope that we can do that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Michael Sylvester, 12 Dillon Drive, Sparta, New Jersey. If I'm not mistaken, during the last election cycle, the town council passed an ordinance about election integrity, voter integrity. Was that carried forward, or was that a one-time resolution for that past election? And if so, would you be passing something similar in light of the upcoming elections?
Chris, you're more familiar with that.
Yeah, so we did pass that, and it's read in. It doesn't have, in my understanding, a time limit on it or particular, but we can go back and relook at it to make sure that there are no dates there. That was passed by a majority of the council. but we can go back and take a look at the resolution itself to make sure that there is no date specific. I don't believe there is, but I will go back and look at the resolution and we can make sure.
Okay, thank you. And in light of what happened last election,
Of course.
there was a number of folks throughout the county and throughout Sparta that their vote was not represented or somehow
Correct.
got crossed up, and whether it was the wrong voting booth or location, et cetera. The other question is there a mail drop box still out in front of the town halls? Are they still doing?
Yes, there is.
Mail? There is. Is it being monitored?
Yes, it is. 24/7 under camera.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And just to echo everybody else's comments, I thought very fair, and I think, in light of the season and the elections coming up, that a fair election would be best served for the town of Sparta. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Agreed, thank you. Is there anyone else?
If I can just speak to this as a former commissioner of the Board of Elections, Mr. Sylvester, you can rest assured that at least in Sussex County, we run fair elections. The people that sit on that commission are the most integrity, and we are different sides of the political aisle. But that stuff gets held at the door. When we were sitting around there, we followed the law, and that's what we followed. And it had nothing to do with, we didn't really care who won. We didn't. That had never influenced it. I can tell you, and Ellen Griffiths, who runs that department, she's one of the best professionals I've ever seen. She runs that department like just, we get it done. And so I can tell you, regardless of whatever you want to do with some announcement on election integrity, you can rest assured that in Sussex County, we do elections right. And I think you can sleep easy at night. Thank you.
Well, may I back up?
Of course.
Well, Mr. Clark, I'll rebut that only because of my personal experience. Last election, I was informed my vote was not counted. And when I reached out and did some research, I went to the county. They deferred me to the township. I went back and forth in between. Check your vote, or my vote online was not there. They had several glitches, so to speak. They promised me, the county did promise me the vote was received. It was not uploaded into the state database. They deferred me down to the state. Only after about 7 or 8 phone calls and then a formal letter from my attorney did that get a resolution to show that my vote counted. As a citizen of Sparta, as an American in this country, it's the only power I have is to cast a vote, regardless of party sides, to your point. I would hope that, and I believe that our elections are fair, but I'm not going to call myself a victim, but I experienced it firsthand, as well as some other, a lot of other folks in town. So I just want to make you clear of the situation. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
I just would like to understand how we didn't know about that.
I didn't hear about it.
Well, we're hearing about this now, which is a matter of concern.
My name is Hattie Stone, and I was an election judge for several years. And I have to tell you that the election board in this county is one of the best ever. Each judge goes through quite a period of training. You are not allowed on there without 3 hours of good training. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just going back, Molly, to your point, so Mike did reach out to me as well several times. Then I diverted him over to Kate because Kate was as our clerk, was the proper contact point. I stayed in touch with Mike. So we were aware of what was going on and trying to support Mike in getting resolution to it. And Mike was not the only one that had that problem. So I know that we had some issues with residents, and Kate was aware too, that had moved and weren't, recently, no one's fault. But I think, he absolutely did reach out to me, and I was working with him, but mainly I sent him to Kate because Kate is our clerk and she handles the elections. So as soon as he reached out, I put him directly in touch with Kate.
All right, if there's no more comment, I'm going to close this section. May I have a motion to? Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Kathy Ebenhausen, 25 Scudder's Road. My question tonight is about water shortages and dryness. So in August, there was a bit of a drought, as we know. I believe it was August. And I happened to see signs popping up in different places of town mentioning that there was some sort of restriction, but I don't know that it was ever discussed here at the town council. So my question is, were those signs coming from the town, or were those private residents putting them up? It's very unclear to me how any sort of water deficit in town was being handled or being talked about, just based on the signs that I had seen in certain places of
I believe those signs were from the township.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the water that comes in those areas comes from the water towers. So it wasn't a shortage of water. It was a shortage of the water towers pushing the water down at one time. So they were trying to tell people at times where everybody's using water not to use too much at one time, because the towers would not be able to pump up to get it out to the residents.
And if I may clarify, just to be more, the amount of water we have supplied for the residents there exceed the requirement that the state mandates that we do. That section of our town, for some reason, uses an enormous amount of water on a per house, per person basis. So the manager's report actually did include for a couple of months this notice. Yeah. And what we do is, and we have it on our books, it's actually not a water restriction, it's a water conservation reminder. There are signs that the water department puts out in those neighborhoods where we have excess of water. We certainly have the supply availability, and the tanks can deliver the water. It's just that the pumps run more frequently than, we would like. And it only happens during certain periods of time, and we think it has a lot to do with, watering of lawns and irrigation systems and things like that. So that's really what it is. It's a reminder to keep us, and we've been doing this for years and years.
And we did post it on our website, Kathy, as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, you said there was one specific area. I thought I had seen them in multiple areas of the town. Can you clarify?
There may be a couple areas that we posted, but there is one area where we do see a significant amount of water usage.
Got it. Thank you.
Mike Devine, Oak Parkway. I'll try to be quick. I don't like to tell war stories, but I feel a little bit compelled. During my 10 years on council, we didn't have Facebook, and I'm probably glad we didn't. I can remember being attacked at Crows. I can remember having an angry mob scream at me at the junior high. I can remember being pulled out of bed in the middle of the night to go over to Sussex Mills to see if I could smell effluent from the quarry. I mean, all kinds of things like that for 10 years of that stuff. So I think it's part of the process. I don't like to see it get personal. I can recall talking to you maybe months ago saying I respect all of you and what you do, and I still mean that. It doesn't mean that we can't have fairly strong disagreement about things that we think are important to the town. I do Facebook a lot, I admit it. I try not to be personal. I try to be balanced and reasonable. If I failed a few times, I apologize. I think it's clear that the warehouse is an enormous, maybe strategic issue for the town. I think the fact that we just went through a big effort to prevent further instances of such construction in the town confirms the fact that there's pretty uniform agreement that we don't want that stuff. I personally say, and I don't want to be controversial, I think there was management inadequacy. Let me put it that way, one way or another. It was management inadequacy that's gotten us to the point where this warehouse is on the brink of being approved. So my complaint is not about any of you personally. My complaint is not about the police. I could tell 20 stories of what the police has done. Dave, I could tell as many stories about what all the EMTs and everybody else has done. I've personally helped people get on your crew years ago. I couldn't be more proud of the town for all those kind of things. But that doesn't mean that I'm not very strongly concerned about the impact of this warehouse. And I think what we're trying to do is, if there was some inadequacy, we're trying to figure out what it was and not let it happen again. That's my perspective. It's not personal, but it's a systemic concern for the town. So thanks for letting me talk.
You bet.
Appreciate
Thank you. There's no one else. May I have a motion to approve the expenditures dated October 25th, 2022?
I have a question about the expenditures before we move on.
Yes.
There was a check 124826 to Strauss News. Can you tell me if that was payment on the agreement from September 7th for the advertising agreement for $16,675? Is that related to that payment? I think the check was for like 2,000 and something. I can look it up in a minute.
I probably can't tell from there. Without going in and actually pulling the voucher, I couldn't really tell you what it's for at this time.
Yeah, $2,200 to Strauss News. So you can't say if that was payment on the invoice from
Not at
September
this
7th?
time, not with looking at the PO. I don't want to say anything inaccurate at this time. I mean, I could gladly give it to you tomorrow if you'd like to.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept expenditures in the amount of $7,247,481.23.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Aye.
Okay, make note that Councilman Chiarello abstained. We have several ordinances this evening, introductions. Roxanne, would you please read the title of ordinance 22-16, please?
An ordinance amending the general ordinances in order to adjust certain fees and escrows.
And may I have a motion to introduce ordinance 22-16?
I move that we introduce 22-16.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Are we going to ask for the public?
Not
It's
an
an
it's an
introduction, not a
introduction.
hearing.
The introduction one?
Yeah.
It's not a hearing.
Sorry, I apologize.
Councilman Chiarello?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg?
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walsman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. And Roxanne, would you please read the title of ordinance 22-12?
An ordinance repealing and replacing section 14-16 and replacing it with registration and maintenance of vacant and abandoned properties.
Okay.
I
this-
move we introduce.
No, this isn't introduced. This is the hearing. This is a hearing. So is there any discussion on this from the public? On 22-12 we're talking about. I bring it back to council. Is there any discussion up here at the dais for 22-12?
I think it reflects our comments.
Jenny Derrick, staff in Sparta. When this was first introduced and then pulled last time, there was a discussion about a red line copy, or at least an understanding of what was changed. Is that available? Do we know, is there a summary of what was changed? Since this was something that that was discussed?
Changes. Did we do a red line? I know we talked about it.
You had the red line available at the last meeting?
I believe it was.
We had it before and after.
To the public?
Yep.
I believe it was online.
Yeah. Okay. We'll pull it up.
Yeah, we can pull that up, Jenny.
Is there any other discussion?
I think one of the main changes and was a concern that I raised was under section 14D11, which the old language had the property had to be secured. And I think the new language is now the property secured against unauthorized entry. So I think my concern was that in the prior language that it could be read that you have to put a fence around the property.
The word was gated, right? The word was gated.
It might have been. I'm not exactly sure. That might have been it. But anyway, the language was
Sure.
loosened to just talk about, I guess, the improvements on the property.
Is that going to be the practice then, to post the red line version online and then?
If there's changes in it, yeah. I don't see why we couldn't do that. It's easy enough to do. Is there any other discussion on 22-12? May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 22-12?
I move that we adopt 22-12.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Chiarello?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg?
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walsman?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. Roxanne, would you please read the title of ordinance 22-13?
Ordinance creating chapter 26 of the municipal code entitled Soil Fill Placement and amending chapter 26 of the code to soil fill, refuse, and escrow.
This is open to the public for any comment on ordinance 22-13. There's no discussion from the audience. I bring it back to the dais. Is there any discussion up here?
I have one question. Is it just me? Yeah. On page 1, actually, we printed out a little bit differently, but there's the definition of soil seems to commingle topsoil and fill. The definition of soil includes things like concrete, brick, glass, clay, ceramic products, and others. It seems to sort of commingle what would be topsoil and what would be fill. Can fill really include those things, concrete, glass, and brick, and clay?
Yeah, I could answer that. What we did was we went out to the DEP to use DEP's definitions for assistance, because obviously at the end of the day, we're looking to regulate contaminated versus non-contaminated. Those definitions of contamination derive from the DEP, so we thought to align our definitions with them so that there would be no inconsistency. And the DEP does have a definition for soil and another definition for fill. Fill does include some non-native materials, but the materials are described as being those materials that would not contribute to contamination. Then on top of that, there is also the quantitative concentration clarification of contamination.
Okay,
At the
thanks.
end, it's either virgin material or it's material from a site that gets tested.
Okay, thanks. And one of the things that struck me is that it went on to say that the fill would be free of construction demolition debris. And I don't know how to reconcile those two.
That's because those
concrete brick.
because those words denote solid waste by DEP's definition.
Okay.
Any other discussion from the dais?
I move that we adopt 2213.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Chiarella.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wong.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Roxanne, would you please read the title of ordinance 22-14?
Ordinance amending Chapter 7, traffic of revised general ordinances amending Section 7-17, vehicles over loaded weight excluded from certain streets.
I open this to the public for comment. Seeing no comment from the public, I bring it back to the dais. Any comments from the council?
I have a comment or two. I noticed that there are currently 16 roads in the township that have weight restrictions. One of those roads has a 15-ton weight restriction because of the capacity of the bridge that goes over the Walk Hill. There's a weight limit there, but all the other roads, the 15 roads, have a 4-ton weight limit. Why was this road singled out as having an 8-ton weight limit?
Basically to limit the size of the vehicle, because the engineer went out and our officer that does the road also went out and deemed it wasn't necessary for the 4-ton limit. So we've, since it was an issue, it seemed with the size of the vehicle, the 8-ton does limit the 18-wheelers and the larger vehicles from going through. It does not negate a lot of the lawn service vehicles going through and some of the local delivery vans.
But why is this one 8? Why are the other ones 4? Like, what is different about this road than the other roads?
So the majority of the other roads I think listed on the ordinance, Councilman, are roads that I believe, and I'm going to look at them further, are self-contained in neighborhoods. We had this conversation at a prior council meeting, and I apologize. Our in-house engineer is not with us this evening. He's under the weather, and he did the research on this as well. We did not want to limit landscaping trucks, delivery vehicles that are under that weight limit to the multitude of other areas on West Shore. There's many other residents that reside on the far end of West Shore and other roadways, including Whippoorwill, Playville Parkway, the Island, and a multitude of others. So to have certain landscaping companies or delivery services have to navigate through West Shore through by the Country Club created a problem. The issue was managing the large vehicles, the large trucks, the tractor trailers on this particular roadway, which this ordinance certainly addresses.
Okay, and we did have that discussion. I wasn't aware that the number that was put on here until I saw the ordinance. The ordinance does read that such vehicles like the landscaping trucks are exempt from this because they have a reason to be there, and delivery trucks that have to be there. But the point of the ordinance is to remove commercial trucks that are using that as a cut-through.
They are exempt from that particular roadway, but we don't want to deter those particular trucks or that traffic from being able to access those other roadways I had just mentioned.
So what would be the weight of like a Coca-Cola delivery truck and like a food delivery truck? Like those are the vehicles trying to get down North Shore and West Shore to the plaza to deliver food products and that kind of thing to the small businesses. Like what's the typical weight of those?
The larger trucks are in excess of the 8 tons, typically 10 tons.
Okay.
Some landscaping apparatuses or trucks are carrying with trailers attached to them, whether it's mulch, wood, delivery vehicles, Amazon, UPS, they will exceed the 4 tons.
But those are exempt anyway, right? Where, even if there is a 4-ton exemption, a limit, the delivery vehicles that are the Amazon truck
They're
delivering
exempt,
to
but
a house on
they'll
that
be
road is
deterred
exempt from that.
from the rest of the roadways and the rest of the community that resides within the reservation.
I think the ordinance specifically says if the truck is it describes except for trucks for pickup and delivery of materials on the streets. So I think whether or not it's a 1 ton or 4 or 8, I think those trucks are allowed to be there regardless, right? That's how I read the ordinance.
That would negate every other roadway that has a 4-ton weight limit if they're saying they're accessing and using that road to make a delivery and taking a roundabout way to another location.
Maybe I'm not making myself clear. An Amazon delivery truck has a right to be on that road regardless if there's a weight limit or not. Right.
I think the distinction is deliveries on that road are exempt, but you're referring to through traffic to get to other neighborhoods elsewhere in the reservation.
Correct.
Right. And I'm specifically referring to through traffic in order to get to businesses like somebody, a Pepsi truck delivering, cutting through there to get to the country club or something. I think that truck specifically would be subject to this weight limit. Okay, I understand your point. Thank you. In any case, I also have another question about. I'm trying to reconcile this against. What was the ordinance? Ordinance 7-37.4, item 12A. I know that's a mouthful, but it lists about. I just eyeballing it about 75 roads. That also, the ordinance says vehicles over a designated weight are restricted from certain streets, and these vehicles over the registered gross weight are hereby excluded from these streets. And it lists about 75 roads that all have 4-ton weight restrictions on them, and one of them does include the North Shore Trail. So how do I reconcile these? Why aren't all 75-ish of these roads listed? Why are there 2 different sections for the restrictions on here?
I would have to look at that. I'm not familiar what you're referring to, Councilman.
Okay. It's so the ordinance that we're talking about is updating section 7-17, and I'm saying later in that section 7-37, there's another schedule of roads that have 4-ton weight restrictions, of which North Shore Trail is one of those roads. So those are my 2 comments, and so I would like to make a motion that we change the ordinance to move the weight restriction from 8 to 4 to be consistent with all the other roads in the ordinance, as well as the section 7-37-4, which already has a 4-ton weight restriction on North Shore Trail.
There's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion to
amend the ordinance. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you want a second?
Do we have a second to
We
it?
have to have a second before we can question it.
All right.
So technically, yeah. So if there's no second, there's no discussion.
I'll second the motion to facilitate discussion.
Thank you.
I just have a question.
Okay.
The size of the truck that was in question when the complaint came in was definitely met the criteria, which is why, in doing a study of that, correct?
Well,
That's
there's
why
not
that
one
weight
complaint.
was selected.
We don't obviously change, roadway weight restrictions based on one particular incident.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying there was, so pursuant to that, there was a traffic study that was done.
Correct.
We didn't just pull this number out of the sky. it was recommended for a reason.
Correct.
So my concern is if we lower it without having the traffic expert here to explain everything, then we're doing a detriment rather than solving the problem that originally this was put together to solve.
So I would like to make this consistent with the section 7-37-4, which also already has a 4-ton restriction on that road.
The recommendation, if I remember properly, was not to restrict it at all. And then talking to Ms. Broderick further, I don't think it was the weight so much as the size. It's a narrow road. So the compromise was, okay, so not to completely limit it and to go with our experts, we came up with the 8-ton, which limits your 18-wheelers and your larger trucks, and that's where we came up with that. Is there any other discussion from the council on
I
the?
can't add any
Not here.
discussion to the 8-ton because my colleague Ed Hack took care of the investigation.
Right.
But there was an analysis done pursuant to the manager's request, and I know he came up with a recommendation of 8 tons so as to address the stated problem. So the idea is that 8 tons solves whatever the issue was. As to the other roads and their weight restrictions, they get done on a case-by-case basis. Every road has a story behind it. A year ago, I know there were a couple of dead ends or no outlet roadways that were reduced in tonnage because we would deal with specific issues there. But there would have to be an analysis of the others to determine why each one has its own unique characteristic.
But it just seems odd that if everyone has a unique characteristic, they all end up as 4 tons.
Well, it was, my understanding is it was either going to be 8 tons or none, or no restriction.
What I can say is the 8-ton number that came up would solve the problem that was being presented, and that was the recommendation to address the issue.
There's no more discussion. We have a motion and a second on the floor to amend the ordinance. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Chiarella.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg.
No.
Councilwoman Quinn.
No.
Councilwoman Wildsmith.
No.
Mayor Smith.
No. That motion failed.
I appreciate the conversation.
Okay, may I have since there probably is no more comment on ordinance 22-14, may I have a motion to adopt ordinance 22-14?
So moved.
No. At this point, we've already closed it from open public. Mr. Ryan, what's the proper procedure on it? There wouldn't be any more comment on it. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Chiarella.
I abstain.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wildsmith.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion's carried. Would you?
Mayor?
Yes.
If I can just say, so now that the motion is passed, the township will go ahead and install the signage as it has done in the past. Even though it's a lake community, we've assisted them over the years with installing signage, and it'll be their responsibility afterwards if there's any upkeep or damage to the signs. But the township will take care of that through our DPW.
And bearing in mind that, all of our ordinances are fluid and they occasionally change, and if that isn't a suitable limit, then that'll be addressed at a later date when there's more evidence to say that it's not a high enough limit.
Certainly can be, right?
Absolutely. Roxanne, would you please read title of ordinance 22-15, please?
An ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the municipal code to include the prohibition of feeding white-tailed deer on private property.
I'll again open it to the public for any comment on ordinance 22-15. Yes.
Hi, me again. Right now, 15 Birch Parkway. Yeah, I was just curious as to, there's fees and fines associated with the other ordinances that you're doing, and there's nothing here, and whether you chose to enforce it or not, being that I was on the board at Lake Mohawk for 15 years, and we had the services of Rusty Brown and initiated the deer culling throughout part of the reservation in response to membership's concerns with the Lyme disease. I was just wondering that you might want to think of having something like a little fine for feeding deer, because there are a lot of people that do it. And, I'm sure I still have back in my notes what the population was per acre of how many deer were over what the normal habitat would be in this area, and the explosion of Lyme disease. So just relative to that, even if you didn't enforce it. So just a comment.
That is something we can look at. Any other comments from the public on 22-15? Bring it back to the dais. Any comments on 22-15?
I have a couple comments.
You might have one from the public here, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
First off, thank you to the council. I think you do a fabulous job.
Thank
I've
you.
been a member of, I've been a resident on and off, well, certainly for the last 24 years I've been here, but I was here prior to that as well. And I don't think the town has ever been in better shape than it is today. Everything you do. You look at our parks, you look at our streets, you just look at everything around, and it's just great. Thank you. I'm here really just to encourage the passage of this ordinance. I don't think there should be a little fine. I think there should be a big fine, but you could decide what that should be. I live at, my name is Doug Radford. I live at 99 Fox Hollow Road, and I'm in Fox Hollow. And over the years, our deer population has more than doubled every year. I mean, it's just amazing. I brought pictures. I don't know if anybody's interested in seeing it, but
I've seen them. Your deer have doubled more than most people's deer.
so we have, in Fox Hollow, we probably have at least 4, maybe 5 families that feed the deer regularly, every day. It's feeding time. If you drive through our neighborhood around 6 o'clock at night, all you see is deer butts facing front doors. Or we have neighbors that actually have troughs out where they make it convenient for the deer to just eat out of. I'm here really just because I now am a grandfather, and I've got 2 little grandkids, and when they come over and the deer come at them thinking that the kids are going to feed them, it's just an unsafe situation. I won't even talk about the number of people in Fox Hollow that have Lyme's disease, but the point I'd like to make is that I think it would be good that we have an ordinance against it, and I think for safety reasons. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Jill Cedar. I live at 25 Fox Hollow Road, and I want to echo what my neighbor said. We have an inordinate amount of deer where we live. And part of it is a lot of our neighbors feed them, and it's unsafe, it's unhealthy for them, it's unhealthy for us. But I think also the broader thing is it's unhealthy environmentally and ecologically. They're destroying the understory, which is the habitat for a lot of native species we need. And if that's left to go that way, the long-term effect can be dramatic and not something that we want. So I really, really hope that this ordinance is passed. And if possible, there can be some kind of fine for those who violate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the public? Bring it back to the dais. Any comments?
No, it's just on ordinance, the last one, so I guess we have an opportunity to.
That's done. Are you talking about 22-14?
Well, in general, because I do have a question with the ordinance that Dan was talking about with the 75-ton streets, are they going to be rescinded? And also when Fiddler's was done, it was a patient.
We could talk after. There's no more discussion on that ordinance.
I just wanted it on the record, that's why I was asking. But
There'll be a time on the, at
There's
the end
another
of the
open
meeting
public
to do
at the
that.
end.
It's open to the public as well at the end of the meeting.
Hold it up till
If you'd
then.
like to.
Yes.
So, I mean, I would just like to recommend that we look at, before finalizing this, adding some of the, fines or some enforcement behind the ordinance.
Mr.
We're going to
Rankin?
take a look at that to see if indeed it does not apply to fine schedule that is already in the ordinance.
Oh.
Yeah, this is adding to an ordinance that the original ordinance for feeding. I think there are fines involved.
Okay.
I believe that there are.
There are.
Okay.
When I went back and when I looked
So-
at it.
So why don't we, so my recommendation to your point, because I don't want to wait to get this in there.
We'll put it in if it needs to be
Yeah,
amended.
so
We'll
can we
amend it.
just,
There are
my
fines in it.
recommendation is move forward with what we have, and then do some research, and then at our next meeting, at least this, if everyone supports, will be in effect, and then if we realize we need a fee schedule behind it, we can add it at the next meeting.
I move that we adopt 2215.
I have a couple of questions before we.
Yes.
So, one question might sound silly, but what does it mean to feed a deer? So, like, as an example, we do feed birds. My wife likes to feed the birds, and we have a couple of bird feeders. And for ground feeding birds, we put out things like cracked corn and peanuts and stuff. And the deer come and lick all the stuff for the crows that we put out there for the ground feeding birds. Would that be considered feeding a deer if we feed ground feeding birds that the deer end up eating?
Well, I think there you'd be getting into a determination by a trier of fact
which would be the municipal court judge in a situation here,
An
I
officer-
believe there would
the
have to be
officer's
an
discretion.
intentional act to feed the deer.
So it's got to be intentional. Maybe that should be in the language
I don't
somewhere.
want to jump into the head of the municipal court judge, but the municipal court judge would make that determination.
So it says knowingly feed, so that would be the intentional part, yeah. Number B was confusing with the last two lines for. Were permitted by legal official. Okay, never mind. That's my only question. Thank you.
I move that we,
I already made the motion.
oh, good. Molly already had made the
Is
motion.
there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cirillo.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hertzberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn.
Yes.
Councilwoman Waltz.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to now open it up to the public in reference to strictly the resolutions 9-1 through 9-7. Any discussion on resolutions 9-1 through 9-7? Anyone from the dais? Any comments on 9-1 through 9-7?
I move that we adopt
Can we carve out 9-6, please, for a separate vote?
9-6.
Correct.
I move that we adopt resolutions 9-1 through 9-5 inclusive and 9-7.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's passed. We carved out 9-6. Councilman?
Yeah, I just have, I'm going to abstain from this because I wasn't given this until about 24 hours before the meeting. It was 27 pages long. I didn't have time to read it for my job, so I'm going to have to abstain because I can't approve something I haven't read.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 9-6?
I move we adopt resolution 9-6.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
One abstain. Any council liaison updates? Councilwoman Wildsmith. Councilwoman Quinn.
I do. So I want to give an update on the planning board, more specifically the subcommittee. And I just want to say that this subcommittee was the North Star, the benchmark, the absolute epitome of the power that happens when we work together versus working apart. It was an unbelievable pleasure to work with dedicated people with diverse opinions, diverse life experiences, different backgrounds, different preconceptions. And we were all unified around one thing, which was not one of us wanted mega warehouses, large-scale warehouses, or warehouse sprawl. Every single one of us was united behind that goal. We came together, we unified around our objective. We wanted nothing more than to work together, even though we had different ideas about how we wanted to do that, because we wanted to protect our community moving forward. We met over a period of 5 weeks. We spent hundreds of hours on top of everything else, because we were so dedicated to solving this problem. We carefully reviewed, we researched huge amounts of land use law. We spent a considerable amount of time with our professionals researching past ordinances in the township, precedences throughout the state. Some of us drove to sites to see what was going on, and then we all brought all of our information back to the group. Never one time was a harsh word spoken. Everybody, every single person on that team was validated and valued for what they contributed and for what they thought. When I tell you that this was probably, in my tenure in this town, which is a very long time, one of the best experiences I have had, and I have had a lot working with our residents. This is up there, definitely, as a benchmark. We had healthy dialogue, healthy debate, discussions. We spent hours and hours on the phone, sometimes amongst ourselves, sometimes amongst the professionals. We had an extensive amount of links and different pieces of documentation. And one of the things that impressed me the most was that when everybody got in that room, minds were open. Everybody was open to learning about factual information, and we all rallied around factual information to make the best choice and recommendations for what we thought was in the best interest of the future of this town. In the end, the findings of this subcommittee were unanimous. They were introduced to the planning board at their meeting last week. This document, there is a document that Chairman Reyna, and I want to commend him also for his excellent leadership for this subcommittee. It was a tremendous job in a very short amount of time. He did a tremendous job in facilitating us through this process. I also want to thank our professionals who spent, Tom Collins, Mr. Simmons, and also Catherine Samad. Everybody was present at every meeting and prepared. As a result, there is a document that will be posted on the township page tomorrow. It starts with an overview of the standards and then a frequently asked question document that is based on factual information that will be posted tomorrow. But I would be totally remiss if I did not take the time now to thank the volunteers that came out, because to some residents' point earlier, this is not a topic that a lot of people want to get on the other side of and be here on this side of it. And I give them a lot of credit for stepping up and standing up and coming together and working with all of us. And I just think it is a tremendous example of the power of what happens when we have people that unify us and when we're unified versus attacking each other and divided. So if anyone would like to learn more, tomorrow this document, my understanding is, will be posted online. It will be accessible to everybody who cares to read it. The next discussion around this, and also online, is the presentation around. Just to touch on some of the things here, well, I'm not even going to touch on these things. It's extensive, and it's amazing, and everybody should be darn proud that this is put together. So I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Drew. I want to thank the fellow members of the subcommittee for putting in the time and for coming to the table with the right mindset at the right time to really make a difference for the township. The next planning board meeting will be taking place on November 2nd. So if anyone is interested in attending, we welcome you to. And like I mentioned before, information will be posted. A lot of it is out there now. Also, information will be posted, this document, tomorrow. So I just wanted to say that. What's that? On the town council website. And I don't know if you follow I have a town council Facebook page, but I will be posting it out there. If you want to do a search in Facebook, Christine Quinn Township Council or Sparta Town Council, I'll have the document posted up there, and I'll be sharing it, but you're welcome to come to my site and you can find it there as soon as it's posted. So I wanted to just say that. Also, the rec department, I just want to say thank you. The trunk or treat is coming up. It's just one of the many things that they do to bring the community together, which I think is awesome. It takes a lot of work. It sounds silly, a trunk or treat. How could that be a lot of work? But you cannot believe the amount of time and effort that goes into it. So I just want to really thank the rec department and also the members of the rec advisory committee for volunteering their time to make it happen. That's it for my liaison updates.
Councilman Chiarella?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. For the Environmental Commission, we did meet almost 2 weeks ago now. We did have one application to review for Perona Farms site. I guess the commission held their annual, or is it biannual? I think we do it twice a year. At least the intention is to do it twice a year. A cleanup on the Route 517 bypass. And so the commission met there and picked up garbage, and that was something that we do a couple times a year, and it's fun, and we invited everybody from the public who wants to join us next time. And there's another meeting this coming Thursday, 2 days from now. As far as I know, I believe it's still on there. And for the Cultural Affairs Committee, there's we're trying to erect a memorial bench to honor Bernice Verwiss, who was a longtime contributor to the Cultural Affairs Committee, who passed away, I believe, about a year and a half ago. And so that's being, I believe Jim Zepp is working with us on that, and so I'd like to thank the DPW for that. I think the committee still needs to raise some money for the bench, so if you're interested in contributing to that, okay. So if you need to raise some money for that, or if you're interested in contributing to that, I believe if you let the acting town manager know, or he'll be able to guide you. And that's all I have for committee reports.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so the EDC met, and currently they're working on their second business forum where you get all the local businesses together, and instead of trying to guess what's good for them, we let them have input on the good stuff, the bad stuff, what they think the township can do to help them be successful. So we're working on getting that plan for early next year, get all the local businesses together and get some input.
Did I read the email right? Our economic development is up for, or been nominated for a county award?
The township is being nominated, yes, for economic development.
And I have no new updates. Any old business? Start with you, Councilwoman.
No old business.
Councilwoman?
I just want to thank Township administration and staff, to Marie and Dawn for their work. I had the pleasure of stepping in for Mayor Smith yesterday to do tours for the life skills, 2 tours for life skills kids that came out of the middle school and the high school. And we always love that. We plan something every year for them to come. So, and also I wanted to thank Officer Morris, Lamon, and DeWalt because they chipped in and gave great tours. Really, the kids loved it downstairs in the police department. Dispatch showed them everything. Then they came up here. Marie and Dawn made sure that everything was prepared, so every child got a letter and had, a lanyard for coming. And also, I had the distinct honor of giving each member of the soccer team, you mentioned in your report, they did get the gold. They won the gold medal, and they happened to be here yesterday, so I had the pleasure of giving them all a Sparta Challenge coin for their win. And it was a proud moment for this town, I will say right now. So I just wanted to add that in there. And that's it for me. And special thanks to everyone, staff, yourself as well, for helping me coordinate that. And I just want to thank everyone for making it a great day for the kids.
Thank you.
And thanks for not being there so I could do it. I'm just kidding.
You know,
Just
a little
kidding.
levity.
I'm just kidding.
We could use a little levity.
A little levity
I
is
couldn't
always
make
good.
it because I babysat the day before, and I happened to go home with my granddaughter's car seat.
Yes.
So I had to drive back so she could go in her car to her tennis practice. So that's where I was. I was driving.
Excused.
Excuses. Councilman Chiarello.
Old business, right? A couple of things. So I'd also like to thank the volunteer fire department, and I believe the ambulance squad was also there for the open house. It was a lot of fun, and what kid doesn't want to see fire trucks, except for the kid that sees fire trucks every day. I think Ben was telling me that, my kids are like, yeah, whatever. I've seen these all the time. So I hope they make it an annual event. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the community enjoyed it and would enjoy it again.
I think they're planning on it.
Yeah, it was
a
were
good
talking about it.
success.
Yeah, it was a lot of
I was
fun.
there early, and they had fire extinguishers the kids were able to shoot targets with, and it was kind of neat.
That's cool. A couple of months ago, I asked for a copy of a sewer study. I believe, Neil, that you sent me a note recently that it was coming, or that was being reviewed. I didn't quite understand what was.
Yeah,
Was
it's
it
still
being
being
revised?
reviewed
Or?
by my professionals, so Phil Spaldi and Ed Hacker, and reviewing it right now. I am as well.
Are they
So
marking it up, or like what?
they're looking at it. They're going over it thoroughly, and then when it's ready to be released, which should be not too much longer, we're going to get it to the entire council to look at.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all my old business.
Deputy Mayor?
No old business.
The only thing I have is I would like to, on the dais, thank the subcommittee for their hard work. It went well. I completely removed myself from it after I sent it down to the planning board, so I had no involvement in it. And I was very impressed with it. I did read the results, and I thought they were very fair, very smart. It's what we all wanted, not just the public, but everyone here on council also had wanted some changes. We are limited a little bit in what we can and can't do, but I was very, very pleased with the results. Let's move on to new business. I'll start with you, Councilman Chiarella.
Yeah, a couple of things. I was looking through some records, and I believe that we had signed a 3-year lease with the property at 5 West Shore in October of 2019. Is that true? So if that's the case, it probably comes up like nowish. Do I have those dates right?
It sounds like it. I would have to look at it, Councilman,
Okay.
to see when it expires.
Thanks. It came up, I was asked by a resident, and it made me take a look at it. And, so I think that comes up soon. Our next council meeting, I think, is scheduled for the second Tuesday, which is November 8th, which is Election Day. Are we holding a council meeting?
There will be
on
no
Election Day?
council meeting.
Okay, so we're not going to meet next on the 8th.
We are not.
Never
we
is.
never have.
Okay, that's what I expected. So that makes this the last council meeting before Veterans Day. And I just happened to stumble upon an old picture. This was my favorite veteran is my dad, who would have been 108 years old today. He was a member of the greatest generation. He was a World War II veteran, non-combat, but World War II veteran. And so I'd like to say in advance of Veterans Day that thanks to all the veterans, and you're braver than I am, and so was my dad. And I guess one more thing I'll also mention is that you mentioned that the police department got a head start on No Shave November. I try to do that every year, and I actually shaved this morning, so I'm going to start today. And that's it.
Deputy Mayor?
No new business.
Me? No.
The only thing I have is we are in the final runnings with the statewide award for We Value Our Veterans. Mr. Litchfield, we don't know the results yet at this point, but we are told we are in the final running. So I will not be at our local veterans ceremonies, nor will I believe Councilwoman Quinn, and I don't know if Neil's coming down to see exactly what the status is going to be. But it's quite an honor. It's a statewide award. It's given down at Homedale at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And that will be on Memorial Day. And that's, again, an award for the We Value Our Veterans.
It's given by the governor. Veterans Day.
Veterans Day. Yeah, it's Veterans Day. What did I say?
Memorial Day.
Oh, I'm sorry. Veterans Day.
It's given by the governor.
It's given by the Admiral.
It's supposed to
It's
be
backed
given
by the governor.
Oh,
Either way, I will be there. And
As
hopefully
will
we'll
I.
get lucky. At this point, I'll open it back up to the public. This time we'll have a 30-minute open session on anything that you'd like to speak on. Anyone from the public?
I really agree with what Councilman or Councilwoman Quinn said. I don't know what you prefer. I apologize.
Councilwoman.
Councilwoman.
That'd be better.
From what I've seen from the committee and so forth, it puts us in a very strong position for the future. So I commend everybody who was involved with it. I wanted to ask one question. I know my lawyer friends would advise me, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. I think I know the answer, but I would like to hear if you have one. The question is, we were on a pretty fast track towards approving the warehouse, it seems to me. If it hadn't been for the public groundswell of concern, would this reevaluation process with the subcommittee have happened? And if so, what would have triggered it to happen?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I was on the subcommittee.
Can I just answer?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
before there was a subcommittee,
Yes.
we were asking for reports
Yes.
and information to address it right away.
Correct.
I mean, that was something that, in our meetings that we had with the township, we asked our professionals to get us all the information so that we could start looking at it and change it. Because nobody was
Ordinance
expecting
you're
this.
talking
Yeah,
about, Josh?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It was also, if you remember, the process works, Mike. You've been through it. The planning board is a process as you go through. And the process works if you give it time. It's the planning board is the one that found that the second building was non-compliant. We had the inkling beforehand. I don't want to speak to exact dates, but it wasn't time. It has a process. I can speak for myself that when I saw it, I'm thinking, okay, here's where we're at. We can't go back, but we can go forward. Yes, in my opinion, I would have formed and sent that down to a subcommittee regardless of anybody else. because I wanted it off of our dice, because it is not us that decides that, it's the planning board. So that's why I assigned it back to Drew Rena and the planning board to set up the subcommittee, and I completely took myself off of it. I didn't see the applications. I did see one application because it came through and they were questioning what it was. But as for that, I had no input on it at all. And the process works. It doesn't, we appreciate everybody coming. It kind of reinforces what we're doing, even though it doesn't appear that way, but the process works. That's all I can say. And if you give things time, you've got good people up here. You really do. We're all here together. So as much as some people like to scream a little louder than others, it doesn't matter as a rule because there is a process and it's got to follow it.
I take you at your word, and this is a little bit outside the normal process, having this kind of committee event, I think.
True. No, you're right. You're right.
I don't remember
It's
having.
true.
We have done other committees on the planning board.
But where
Yeah.
there's a concern and you don't want it, and when you're being accused of being nearsighted, so to speak, on it, you want to remove yourself from it and knowing that the people will do the right thing.
I think it was,
And they did.
it was as important to give, some of the outside residents a chance to have input. It was also as important to let them see how the process works and get all the information that's involved in a process like that.
I agree with everything you're saying, and I think it was a tremendous move to make. I have to disagree with you. I don't feel confident that it would have happened without the community concerns.
I will tell you though, Mike, honestly, we've done this before. This is not the first time we've done it. The township just purchased property recently over by the Glen. And we set up a committee with the neighbors. This is not the first time we've done these one-off meetings where we have concerned residents at all. It's probably the first time that we had a situation where everyone was so against that there was no bridge. But we just did this with regard to Eagle's Nest. We just had a conversation. And we had two representatives from the neighborhood that represented the neighborhood, Dave and myself, and all of our professionals had meetings with them to go through the plans. We sat together. They brought it back to the neighbors. They benchmarked against the neighbors. We were able to gather the concerns of the neighbors. I mean, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is how we solve problems.
I've done all that kind of stuff too, and that's a great way.
No, we served on the planning board together.
It's a great way to operate. My only thing is I don't know if you've ever done that with an ordinance, and I don't know if you've ever been confronted with a problem of this magnitude that led you to bring in a resident committee.
Well, I mean, a resident committee, like I said, we have done it before. Was it over an ordinance of this magnitude? I've been on the planning board for 7 years. I've been on several different subcommittees, not necessarily around ordinances of this magnitude. I don't know the last time there's been an issue with an ordinance to this magnitude. And I think it's very important that we all remember that it's not, when we talk about ordinances, it's not one ordinance that brought this warehouse here. It's someone who wants to develop their property that brought this warehouse here. When you served on this council, 1804 was in fact. Would you ever think in 100 years while you sat in this seat that 1804, would you ever think anyone was coming with a 770,000 square foot warehouse? Never, So I think it's important to remember that this is happening all over New Jersey. It's not just us, but as soon as we saw it, we took action. And the other thing is, there are different levels of what we are allowed to say, especially when there's an active application. And it's very important for people to understand that. And then you compound that with litigation on top of it. We do not want to be in a situation where we speak outside of our purview to inflict any more liability to the township. And believe me when I tell you, I'll speak for myself, that has been incredibly frustrating over the past 10 months of not being able to. But you know what? I'm here to serve the town. So, this is what has to happen. But the most important thing is we're not looking backward, we're looking forward. We're making amendments and refinements. We recommended them from the subcommittee meeting. It's a great wave we have right now. I'm looking forward to the second. I think the introduction was fantastic and very well received. I couldn't be prouder to sit on that committee, and I back every single thing that we did. So let's see what on the second. We'll have further discussion because we wanted I think Drew said it in the meeting. He wanted the public to be able to have a chance to digest it. There's a lot. It's not one little thing in one little ordinance. It is, if you look at the document tomorrow, the link will be posted, you will see how in-depth we got with this ordinance.
Yeah, I know.
And
I certainly am very happy about that. We don't want to begin to relitigate or revisit history
No.
for the millionth time.
No.
My concern is, and I don't know for sure, but it seems to me there was a point in time where we could have recognized the implications of where this was all headed and stop it before it was unstoppable. That's my concern. And the second thing is, I remember back when the Economic Development Zone was created, one word that seems to have been lost over time it was for light industry. And I don't know if that word still is in the original master plan or whatever, but light industry certainly will not encompass a mega warehouse. So we didn't anticipate mega warehouses. They didn't exist then. But we did definitely say light industry.
But warehouses were also permitted, and there's been warehouses that have been over there for decades that are great
Absolutely.
Contributors to our
And
community.
let's get some more like that in no
And,
Vegas.
But I think her point was, the people that were sitting on the board then certainly didn't expect a 770,000
Of
square foot
course.
warehouse, but it was allowed. And it could have come. And nobody anticipated that. So the question is, like she said, is that,
We don't want to get back into litigating, but once it started to become a conversation with town people, was there a point in time when it could have been recognized, anticipate the problem, and stopped or changed? I don't know.
I don't know either. But you're right.
That's my concern.
I'd like to clarify that a little bit too. I think it's, I don't think it's accurate to say nobody anticipated it. I anticipated it when we did that.
Did you know about it before? Did you see it? Did you know it was coming?
No, but I raised concerns about traffic and about.
No, I understand that you
the
raised
aquifer.
concerns, but did you have knowledge that a warehouse was actually coming there?
I did
Of
not.
that size?
I did not. But it seemed very clear that that's what that ordinance was designed to do, to increase the size of the allowable structure and the footprint. And again, as I said, you can listen to the meetings. I raised concerns about traffic and the impact on the aquifer.
The first inkling I had on it, in all honesty, was the resolution we passed in November, increasing the I think it was the wastewater resolution, mentioning in that 880,000 square feet. That's what it would be needed for. And if I remember correctly, Molly introduced it, and Dan voted for it, so he should have been aware that it was an 880,000 square foot possibility at that point. Did I think an application was coming in?
For
And let
many
me
months,
finish.
you've all said you didn't want to have a discussion about this,
Well,
and now you're
he brought it
talking
up.
very freely about this matter. So,
I'm not talking freely about
my position
anything
is
in
2101 should never have been
specific.
passed.
So anyway, it's what it is, and I had stated it before. How it got here, it's here at this point. I think the subcommittee did a wonderful job on moving forward, and I think that's what we have to look at. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes.
So thankful for the subcommittee. Great news, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm finally getting great news, and I'm happy that a group of both opposing sides came together without one mean word.
Yes.
So that shows that we can all work together.
Correct.
And I just want to clarify, I am not against free speech, but I am against hateful speech and personal attacks and people calling for people to protest at people's homes, which I found horrifying. We live in Sparta. We live in a nice town, but I'm against bad speech by both sides. I just wanted to clarify that. And thank you for that great thought. And thank you also for bringing up that the warehouse was non-conforming.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vivian Perlmutter again. I tend to think that given the testimony at the planning board, it was your professionals that knew about it in advance, knew all the details. They had discussed everything with Diamond Chip. And you still keep these same professionals. They got you into this problem. Can't you replace them? There was, they don't even work for us as town employees. They're out, You're outsourcing them, and they also were paid by Diamond Chip. So by keeping them, if I had an employee that I thought wasn't loyal to me, I wouldn't keep that employee. I'm telling you that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Pete Litchfield, 120 Conestoga Trail, Sparta. I'm the commander of the VFW across the street. I just want to thank you all for your service and for your dedication to all the military personnel in town. We really appreciate it, and I want to invite everybody to the 9/11 ceremony. It's 11/11 at 11, and we have a barbecue afterwards. And I also want to thank you for being able to fight many fronts. This warehouse, I know, has taken a lot of valuable time away from other duties in the town. So thank you for keeping your heads cool and focusing on other problems also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Commander.
Hi, just one quick question. Resolution 9-7, what is the purpose of it? What is it? What is it for?
9-7, we have to, in our budget,
Sam, answer.
actually, I'm going to let Sam answer it, but it's an emergency appropriation.
Basically, it's an emergency appropriation. This was for the Board of Adjustment, and it was due to unforeseen litigation costs that weren't budgeted for the year, over and above our normal legal costs that are in the Board of Adjustment account. Litigation was put against the board sometime over the summertime. Basically, just received within the last week the first bills that came in from the professionals that are gathering the information for this, and the first September's bills were in the area of about $16,000 between one legal firm, and I think another consulting legal firm that is handling this on our behalf. Talked with Mr. Collins, who's aware of these professionals, and said, look, this wasn't budgeted, so basically we're going to have to do an emergency appropriation to get the funding in place. Ask him if $60,000 to take us through December would cover us, and he says it sounds like it's probably going to be a pretty fair figure as to the cost based on the billing that we received for the first month.
And this is it, once it's passed, is it ongoing or is it just for 2020?
This will just take us up to the end of December, because we budget on a calendar year. So basically, again, this is an unexpected legal expense, and the only way we could actually pay those bills is to do an emergency appropriation. Now, this emergency appropriation will have to be funded in next year's budget right from the get-go. Even before we do anything else, we know we have to raise an additional $60,000 in next year's budget.
Thank you for the clarification.
And this is Mr. Clark's and Mr. Dash's lawsuit against the town?
Yes, I believe that's the one.
Yes.
I have a couple quick questions. Beth Broderick, 18 North Shore. One of you said that you don't do an ordinance based on one person's complaint or request. Back when the weight restriction was done for fiddlers, I believe one resident of Sparta approached you, Josh, and said that there was a safety issue. It came before town council. There was no traffic study done, and it passed at the following meeting. So I'm just curious as to why there's a difference now where Dave, I think you said, we don't do an ordinance because one person complained. So I'm just curious, or one person had a concern. So I'm just curious why there's a difference now.
Well, there was actually, and Neil, you can probably answer this better, but there was an ongoing investigation on the particular person that owned those trucks and what they were doing. And it wasn't just one resident. It was one resident that brought our attention to it. but it was several residents that it was impacting.
Okay,
And-
so, oh, go ahead.
But I think we did send somebody out to look at it. We didn't just throw a sign up without looking into
My
it.
traffic officer's here this evening, and he did investigate it, and that was the case. We were talking about large dump trucks that were, going in and out of the community consistently, carrying loads and storing.
The cut through for Lafayette, right?
Correct.
But Fiddler's doesn't connect to Lafayette.
Connected to a residence that he was using to store these trucks.
Okay, because in the minutes from the meeting when that came up, it said that no traffic study was done. Is that just different than the traffic study that was done on North Shore back in April for the concerns that North Shore had? And I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm trying to understand why there's a difference. And is it the same situation? Is it different? Why are we being told no flat out when other roads have gotten the restrictions for 4 tons? They're wider. And we have a very narrow subpar road with trucks where you can't get 2 landscaping trucks down the road at the same time. And I was within 2 inches of being hit by a landscaping size and type vehicle on Saturday afternoon. There was a landscaping vehicle parked in front of 14 North Shore Trail, which had every right to be there because they were working on 14 North Shore Trail. I pulled out of my driveway, was talking to Alec, who was sitting right there, for 2 seconds because he had the dogs out. 2 seconds, a landscaping-sized vehicle came up over the hill on the wrong side of the road and came within this close. He told me, "You have to move because I can't get past." And I was like, "You're on the wrong side of the road." "Oh, pull up and I'll go around you." He missed me by this much. And the reason I was where I was is because we had a pedestrian walking 2 Labradoodles on the street. So I'm just trying to understand why we go through all these hoops. We're told no. 4 out of 5 of you vote no. We now have another situation where we have landscaping trucks. And again, I know I'm not anti-business, but we have a huge safety issue. We have 4 or 5 kids under the age of 10 on the street. We've had cars going around, stop school buses with the flashing lights and the signs out. We have dump trucks and Pepsi trucks and all kinds of other trucks going through. I almost got hit by a landscaping-sized truck that said pesticides on it. And then I go through minutes and everything. What time is it, Dave? I see you looking at the clock. Am I talking too long?
No. I have a thumbprint on my eyeglasses, actually.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't taking out.
No, you're fine.
Because I know, and again, I'm going to be snarky for a second. We've
No,
been hearing
you're fine.
for the last couple weeks on Facebook, on the radio, at the meetings, Sparta is the #1 safest town. We're concerned about the safety. We have all this stuff coming in. We're trying to keep our street safe. It's a known cut-through disaster of a road. And we're told, no, you can't have a weight restriction. And it's from one person. So I'm just trying to understand why and what my next step is so that under Title 39, I don't have to come back to the town and say, hey, I approached you guys with a legit concern. You guys said no, and now you're going to get sued because the 6-year-old got hit by a truck driving down the street.
I mean, I'll just say that we're not the professionals. We don't decide what's the weight that goes there.
But
You brought it up. We brought it up to them, and this was the recommendation from the people that do their study, the professionals.
What do I do now?
Is the ordinance from tonight the 8-ton limit?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, my colleague is not here, Ed Hack, but Ed had done an analysis of the road, given the objective that was stated, what was wanted to be achieved, the 8-ton limit
We asked for
was
4.
determined, but to get the objective, to achieve the objective, the 8-ton limit was determined to achieve that objective. So something was being sought, it's now been provided for with that 8-ton limit. That's why I'm kind of confused.
And we have the problems with the trucks that park along while they're doing the yards, the landscaping trucks everywhere, on every road. Parking on corners where you can't see around them, it happens everywhere.
On wider roads that don't have.
But can still cause the same problem. I agree,
So how
that
do
road
we
is.
fix? So how do we fix it? What do we do now?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, besides limiting people from being able to do that.
I mean, we can't stop the landscapers. We can't stop people that have legitimate business on that road and in Lake Mohawk.
That's the problem.
But
you can stop the
the cut
Pepsi truck
through,
using it as a cut through to go to Il Porto or something like that.
exactly,
And we literally
and the guy
can
that's
put a weight limit
mowing,
on it. It's literally our job.
and the guy
We
that's
literally
mowing
just
the
did that.
lawn.
We just did that.
We didn't, well, it wasn't good enough.
That's what we did.
I think the 8-ton does address that.
But you guys just voted no on the 8-ton, didn't you?
No, we did
No,
not.
we voted yes on the 8-ton.
You got the 8-ton limit.
Dan, yeah, we did.
I thought it was, I'm sorry, I thought you guys said no.
We,
so
we all supported you.
I thought, because when I heard no,
No, that was
I-
on a 4-ton. There was an
I had
amendment.
made a
to it.
motion to lower it to 4-ton to be
I thought you
consistent with
guys
every
said
other
no
road
on
in the.
everything.
No.
No, we said yes.
All right, that I'm,
The
that I'm
8-ton is,
supporting
the
you.
8-ton is enforced.
That's why
and-
before I came up and said you guys are all miserable and I hate every last one of you, which I did not say. I wanted to make sure I knew that we at least had.
No, you have the 8-ton,
You have
and
8-ton.
and the township
You
will
have it.
place the sign.
And they said they're going to do it this week. You said you were going to talk to DPW and get the sign up.
I apologize. I thought you guys said no to everything, and I was like, wait a minute.
No,
No.
we haven't said no to.
Also, that street will now be under scrutiny, and we had a little conversation where we said, this is a fluid situation. And
Okay.
if we see that, you know, the council in the future may choose to change that again. So you definitely went a few brilliant steps in the right direction.
As long as we're going in the right direction.
You're going in the
okay,
right
so that I don't-
direction.
Okay, then I won't antagonize you at the next meeting, I promise.
And we're supporting you
Okay,
and the residents on your street. We want safe streets too.
okay, thank you. It's just been a very long couple of years trying to fight everybody on the street, so, or for the streets.
Understood.
So, thank you.
You're welcome to antagonize me anytime you want.
Oh, I will.
Thank you.
Neil Clark. One thing that the town, you know, talking about emergency funds, I think the taxpayers of Sparta also had an emergency fund that they had to dip into in order to fund that litigation. So when we're talking about it was an emergency, it's an emergency for the people who thought this is an imminent threat to Sparta and dug into their own pockets to fund it. They also had their emergency fund that they had to go to. And I'm sure if you ask them, they would much rather spend that money on their kids, on travel. No one wants to pay for litigation. So if we're going to talk about emergency funds and what the town had to go through, let's talk about what the taxpayers and the people who've dipped into their pockets to help stop what they thought was an imminent threat.
That is taxpayer money that we're talking about.
Well, now they're getting hit twice, right?
You're right.
You
They
should
are.
know that.
You're
And
absolutely
how many
correct.
times did I sit here in open public session saying, we don't need, residents do not need to be giving money? I said this multiple times, that if we need reports, if we need things, the applicant pays. I have said this for months. So there's no, I have said, it might not be getting published or it might not be getting out there, but I have been warning and saying residents do not need to do that because of the processes that we have in place on our side.
But you set up a
So-
process in which they would not trust you to do that in a thorough
They were not
and
giving
well-managed
factual
way.
information, Neil. Let's
They-
call it what it
no,
is.
Absolutely.
Let's call it what it is right now, because they were maligned and weaponized, and they were not ever given proper information. That's why.
Oh, then we
That's
can-
how we got
then we-
here.
let's-
All right, let's keep it.
Then we will talk about the proper information.
Let's talk about that.
Okay? So
Sure.
you say ordinance 2101, that had nothing to do with a particular development. Well, if that was true, then I hope you're going to have perjury charges against both Jim Ford and their lawyer, because what did they say? And I'll tell you what they
That's
said.
on them.
No.
2101 did
This
not
is
bring
what
it
they
and develop
said,
it.
and they said it under oath.
Okay, well.
Okay, unlike any of you, you're not under oath here. They are. This is what they said. That was the reason for adopting the ordinance amendment to the ED zone, to permit this project, and we are fully consistent with this ordinance. That's what the lawyer for Diamond Chip said. Again, Jim Ford, on cross-examination, he has every interest to tell the truth because he knows he was sworn an oath and he knows the penalty provisions under New Jersey law. Question, Mr. Ford, do you have any knowledge as to whether or not any representative of this development made any request to the township for a change in the ordinance? Answer, yes. Who was it that handled the interaction with the Township Council and its representatives in order to make the request for the change of the ordinance? My partners, Frank Hunkel, Peter Barba, and John Shortino, asked for the height and lot coverage to be increased. And as I've sat up here before, we have communications from your professionals to the professionals from Diamond Chip prior to that ordinance. And while we have this, grand august committee, that's great. I think that, we'll find out. We're still vetting what they've done. There's no reason such a committee could not have been formed at the time that Diamond Chip came sniffing around asking
The planning
for a
board had
change.
no knowledge of
let
that,
me
and you
finish.
know it.
The
Planning board had no knowledge of it.
That doesn't matter. If you were executing your duties as a responsible town council, or you had professionals who would actually tell you what was going on, you could have said, whoa, wait a minute, what you want what? Why do you want it? They wanted it so they could build an 890,000 square foot warehouse.
And the planning board stopped it.
No, they haven't stopped
Yes, they
it.
have.
We haven't seen their plans. And
No one's seen their plans, but it's not what it was.
And this narrative about the ordinance was not for this development is completely counter to testimony that's been before the planning board.
Well, was
and if
Jim
this
Ford
ordinance
here
was not for the developer, then less than 2 months after that ordinance is passed, like bees to honey, what do you get? You get a letter addressed to Stan Push from the lawyer for the developer.
Mr. Mayor, I just point out there is pending litigation
Yeah.
on these issues at this time, and for us to get involved in
You're-
discussion and debate over that.
Okay, about the actual application. Okay, so
Well,
we can
it
engage.
just
But
has
you know
nothing to
that
do with
anyway,
the-
that we
this
can't
has nothing
engage.
to do with the merits of the application.
Sure
It
it
has to
does.
do with whether the ordinance, which you have held forth about, had nothing to do with this development. And that's completely counter to the facts of the case.
Okay.
And what I was pointing out was literally 2 months after that ordinance is passed, guess who shows up? Diamond Chip talking about they want to build a warehouse, and they include in the letter the concept plan that actually has the size of the facility they want. So if this ordinance was not passed for this particular development, then it's a heck of a coincidence that the developer shows up less than 2 months after the ordinance is passed. That's the record. That's the facts. You may not like it, but that's what it is. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Look, these are when all the recommendations were made for that.
Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway, Sparta. Ms. Quinn noted that 700,000 feet could have gone on this parcel. Well, when Mr. Bush
770.
and Diamond Chip were discussing this change of ordinance, prior to apparently you all being aware, I mean, the reason that Diamond Chip wanted the site and why they didn't want a 700,000-foot building as is because they wanted 56-foot clear. In today's industrial market, it's not cost effective to be building a 30-foot clear height building, which I believe is what the restriction was on that 700,000-foot building, which could have been built there. So when Mr. Push and Diamond Chip were working on the ordinance, not only was the building made bigger, the coverage increased. Let us all remember that it was 56-foot clear, the tallest building in this town, making it the third biggest building in the state of New Jersey, and that's the reason that we have this, 2101. I just want to congratulate our mayor on his granddaughter and that she has a safety seat, because during her lifetime she will see 7,880,000 trucks
That's
come
out of
into
line.
this
Bringing
town.
up his granddaughter in
That's
this
18
conversation,
years.
that's out of line.
Come on.
The half an hour is up.
No.
What about the math?
Hey.
Seriously.
Here, let's do the math.
Come on.
Please. It's my turn.
The half an hour is up. I want a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Enough with the families.
Is there a
365
second?
days a year.
I second it.
All in favor
Enough
of
with the
adjourning the
18
families.
years of age,
Meeting's adjourned.
1.8 million.
Our families have been through enough.